China, worried about aging society, lifts laws limiting families to one child. By Washington Post, adapted by NewsELA staff on 11/2/15. Beijing, China. China has dropped its one-child policy, which made it against the law to have more than one child. Now, all couples will be allowed to have 2 children. The change was announced on Thursday. China's leaders have become very concerned about the country's aging population. The number of elderly people is growing quickly. China's government worries that there could be far too few young workers in the years ahead to take care of them. Population growth led to 1980 policy. China's one-child policy was introduced in 1980. At the time, China's leaders were worried the country's population was growing too quickly. They were afraid of having too many people for the country to feed. The policy's rules were loosened somewhat in 2013. Wang Fan is an American expert on China. He and others have warned for years that the aging of China's population could cause serious problems. Right now in China, families have an average of 1.4 children. The United States and many other countries have more than that. When 2 parents have 2 children, then a country's population stays the same. If families have less than 2 children, the number of people goes down. Now, low births causing different problems. China's low number of births has led to several problems. Compared to earlier times, a much bigger share of the Chinese population is now elderly. The government has been forced to spend extra money on caring for them. The other serious problem is that the number of young workers has been dropping. China needs many young, healthy workers to keep its factories and companies running at full speed. The country could lose much of its wealth if too few people are working. Change will take years to see, experts say. China experts say the ending of one-child policy is an important step in the right direction. However, they say it will take years for the effect of the change to be seen. Wang called Thursday's announcement great news. However, he said China will have to live with its population problem for many more years. China's working population fell for a 3rd straight year in 2014. The number of workers dropped by 3.7 million to 916 million. The number of young workers is expected to continue dropping for years to come, even with the new rule change. It will take time for the added number of children to grow old enough to get jobs. And China continues to age while waiting for babies. Meanwhile, the number of people aged 60 and above will reach 400 million by the early 2030s. At that point, they are expected to make up a quarter of its population. People 60 and above now make up about 1/7 of China's people. The one-child policy was first relaxed in 2013. When that happened, couples were allowed to have a second child if either parent was an only child. In the countryside, couples were already allowed to have a second child if their first child was a girl. The earlier change did not lead to much growth in the number of births. Many families were simply used to having the idea of only having one child. Some families were also worried a second child would be too expensive.